Hi, welcome back. My name is Ari, and for 2020, for this whole year so far, I have been periodically reading books that were either the winners of their category in the Goodreads Choice Awards, or they were nominated, or they were the highest rated in December in their categories. There were a couple of like little fudges where it's like maybe the highest rated was like the 16th book in the series, so I went to like the next highest rated, or some silly stuff like that. But overall, that's what I did. I read all the books, and we're going to kind of come back and see if I vibe more with like the popular vote, or if I'm gonna vibe more with like what's actually rated highly. Like, I don't really know why like the rated highly wouldn't match up the popular vote, but it doesn't, like, at all. Not at all. So, we're gonna go through each one of the categories. I'm gonna move this a little bit this way so I can be centered, and on one side we're going to do the highest rated, and on the other side we're going to do the winner, and I will have, like, I'm sure you can already see like at the top of the screen where it says either highest rated or winner. So, and then I'm going to tell you like super little short tidbit about them, and then like what my opinion is or who the winner is for me for that category. So the first category, the winner, is The Testaments by Margaret Atwood. This is the follow-up to The Handmaid's Tale, which was written in 1985. There wasn't necessarily ever planned to be a sequel to The Handmaid's Tale, but we got a sequel in 2019, and it's the same universe, maybe a generation later than The Handmaid's Tale, following three other women in different, different social class than a handmaid in The Handmaid's Tale. So, you got that book. It was pretty good. I liked it. Unfortunately for The Handmaid's Tale, the highest rated was A Woman Is No Man by Etaf Rum, and this is the story of a Pakistani woman who immigrated from Pakistan to America, in just her, you've got the woman and then like generations of other women, and where this book puts into question like why it's not so simple to just be like, well, leave your husband. Like, you don't speak the language, you have nowhere to go, you don't know anybody. As far as you're told, like, if you go out into the streets, a white man's going to kill you, and you literally don't know any better. And then what do you do if your husband's beating you? Or you're just treated badly by your parents or grandparents or in-laws or whatever. And that kind of addresses like women in bad situations as well as being an immigrant. And I thought it was very educational. I loved this book. It is probably in the contenders for top books of the year for me. So fiction, easy choice for me. It was A Woman Is No Man. The next category was mystery and thriller, and the winner was The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides, and the highest rated was The Lost Man by Jane Harper. Now, The Silent Patient was interesting. It was creepy. That's one thing I remember from the book, because I read this much earlier in the year, is that it was creepy. You just had like this uncomfortable sense of dread the entire time you're reading this. Like, you're reading from the perspective of a man I believe it's the doctor's perspective you're reading from, and you're just like, this is skeevy, and he's not actually doing anything wrong, but you still feel like it's so skeevy. And so I thought that was done just really, really well. The Lost Man has to do with some like brothers in Australia in the outback in the middle of nowhere, and one of the brothers is dead, and this book was absolute trash and no one should ever read it. I have no idea how this is highest rated. It was so stupid and so predictable, and I hated everything about it. So there's that. Next was historical fiction, and the winner was Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid, and then the highest rated was The Giver of the Stars by Jojo Moyes. Now, I actually enjoyed both of these books. Daisy Jones and the Six I listened to as an audiobook, and it's told in an interview style, so it reads really, really well as an audiobook, and it's read by a full cast, so each individual person who's being interviewed has their own voice actor for it. This is basically about the rise and fall of the band The Six and then Daisy Jones, and it starts like before they come together and form Daisy Jones and the Six, and then like the height of their fame and then breaking up. And it was interesting. I don't actually give a shit about music in general, much less music in like the 60s and 70s, but I still found this like really, really interesting. There is like emotional cheating in this, and I know that bothers a lot of people. If that's something that bothers you a lot, this probably isn't your book. Then The Giver of the Stars is about women in the Great Depression in, I want to say Kentucky, but I could be completely wrong. Somewhere in Appalachia Hills, something like that. And they are running a free library as part of like a government stimulus package, basically. It's a women-owned or a women-run library done by the First Lady of the United States, and it helps like bring in income from the government. And they basically have a library in town, and the different women take the books into the hills and then deliver books to the communities like around their town. This is mostly about women's rights, and it was really fantastic. I really, really enjoyed this. There is some controversy around this book that the plot was stolen from another book. I haven't gotten a chance to read the other book, but this like theme, like the woman-owned library like thing like really existed. So I mean, it's historical, it's true, so maybe it was just a similar story based off of like an actual historical event. I can't speak to that. I haven't read the other less popular book. Eventually I do want to read it, I just never got around to it this year. But I did end up liking The Giver of Stars just slightly better than Daisy Jones and the Six, even though I think both of them are very, very good books. Next up was fantasy, and I read this all back in December. Both of these books are all like the top 11 books in this category I read in December. And the winner was Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo, and the highest rated was The Winter of the Witch by Catherine Arden. I preferred The Winter of the Witch. I gave that 5 stars. Ninth House, I didn't hate it as much as a lot of people seem to hate it, but I loved The Winter and the Witch, like, or The Winter of the Witch. I don't know why I said in. I loved The Winter of the Witch by Catherine Arden. That was one of my probably top 5 books of last year, so easy on that one. The next category was romance, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I am not even a little bit of a fan of contemporary romance. if I read romance, it's like something else with romance in it or paranormal romance. I like paranormal romance. I do not like contemporary romance. It's just my personality and how I feel about relationships doesn't really vibe great with contemporary romance. So the winner was Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston, and the highest rated was Verity by Colleen Hoover. So Red, White, and Royal Blue is the story, it's a male-male romance where the son of the President of the United States, who was not anybody we actually have, this is a woman, she got voted in, or she got elected president after Barack Obama, no one who actually exists. And then you've got the Prince of Wales, and the Queen of England is not like the actual Queen of England, it's a fantasy made up Queen of England. And they fall in love, so you've got a male-male romance, America and England, and enemies to lovers, even though it's not really enemies, it's like slight dislike due to an understanding to lovers. It's very graphic, very sexually explicit, so if that's not your thing, probably isn't for you. My major problem with the book, other than it being a contemporary romance, which I don't like, is I thought the boys, they were supposed to be in their like mid-20s, and they acted like 16-year-olds. Like the maturity level was way too low for college graduated adults. And that's really my major problem with it. That being said, Red, White, and Royal Blue wins this category by default because Verity is a thriller. This is not a romance, it's a thriller. There is a romance, but it's not really like, it's not even like a thriller with a romance in it, it's just a thriller where the characters are shit and one of the guys cheats on his wife. So, I assume Colleen Hoover is typically a romance author, and that's how Verity got thrown in this category, but yeah, that's just 100% miscategorized entirely. The next category is science fiction, and the winner was Recursion by Blake Crouch, and the highest rated was Exhalation by Ted Chiang. Recursion is time travel science fiction, I guess, like memory stuff and kind of time travel. Basically, this woman is trying to find a cure for Alzheimer's and ends up inventing time travel instead. And it's weird, and maybe I'm too stupid to understand it, but I thought it was kind of just mediocre. In like the entire like pacing and like vibe of the story like changes a little over halfway through, and it's like a completely different story after that, and I thought that was really weird. Exhalation is a group of short stories, so I guess all the stories change, but I really like Ted Chiang's writing. Like, I want to read a lot more of his short stories. I very much enjoyed the short stories in there, so Ted Chiang wins this category. The next category is horror, and the winner was The Institute by Stephen King, and the highest rated was The Lost Causes of Bleak Creek by Rhett McLaughlin and Link Neal. Now, The Institute isn't really a horror story. You can kind of get into it. It's kind of more science fiction fantasy, but there are some like scariness to it. I'm gonna be real honest with you, and I don't remember most of the plot by this point. So obviously it was one of those books that just, it's not interesting enough that it's sticking with me still. But I didn't like the Lost Clauses of Bleak Creek. That was a lot more fantasy, like a fantasy horror to me, and I think it was just highly rated because of who the authors are. The authors are well-known YouTubers, but the story itself was dumb. It was real dumb. It was like cult shit that didn't make any sense. So I'm gonna give this one to The Institute by Stephen King, even though I don't even remember what it's about, which says a lot for how bad The Lost Causes of Bleak Creek is. The next category was humor, which the winner was Dear Girls by Ali Wong. The highest rated was Small Doses by Amanda Seales. I'm going to be real honest with you. I hated both of these books. This is just straight up not my kind of humor. Nothing wins this category. I hate them both. Nothing wins. I am hugely considering not reading humor next year because I hated these books so much. The next category is non-fiction, and the winner was Girl Stop Apologizing by Rachel Hollis, and the highest rated was Catch and Kill by Ronan Farrell. Girl Stop Apologizing is a rich white girl basically telling you that you're just not working hard enough. If you tried harder, you could be internet famous like me. That got a 1 star, and I have like a whole ass rant review about how fucking much I hated that book and how pretentious and stupid and classist that woman was. Like, she is a shitty person who has built up a huge social media following to scam the fuck out of her social media followers. Like, that woman is not a good person at all, and most of that book she is just straight up lying to people. There is no backing research for any of her stuff. A lot of it is dangerous, and there's like so many like even just safety hazards. Like at one point she talks about like just straight up lying on a resume to get a job, and she lied to get a like catering job. She had no permits at all to be able to like safely cater food, no experience to be able to safely cater food. And she lied to somebody saying like, oh yeah, I have plenty of catering experience. I've done it a million times before with no experience at all. And she was like, and then I just spent a month teaching myself how to do it. Like, she could have poisoned so many people with her ignorance. And then she's out here telling other people to do it. She also kind of tells people like, quit your job. It doesn't matter if you can feed your kids or not. Like, you're just not working hard enough. If you say you don't have enough time to better yourself, then you're just not trying hard enough. Give up time with your spouse or your children to start a second business. She recommends that you start working for MLMs, which are a huge scam that you can research all on your own without even like listening to what I'm telling you. Like, MLMs are going to lose you money like 89% of the time. This woman is a shitty person, but I'm gonna stop ranting. The other book was Catch and Kill by Ronan Farrow. Ronan Farrow is Woody Allen's son, and he is also a reporter. He basically, his younger sister was, sexually assaulted by his father. They are very distanced from, like, he doesn't speak to his father anymore. He supports his sister fully, and when he started hearing about the Me Too movement and, I can't remember the guy's name, which is probably good because we don't want to talk about, rapist Harvey Weinstein. Harvey Weinstein, when he started like hearing more and more on the news about him sexually assaulting young up and coming actresses, women are trying to like be heard, and no one is doing anything because it's a wealthy white man. And so Ronan Farrow starts investigating these claims and help brought a like charges against Harvey Weinstein for sexually assaulting women, like help get this word out and then make it where the other wealthy white men couldn't just sweep it under the rug and keep ignoring it. He got it out into the public. And that's basically what this book is about, is like his investigation process, from like starting to hear about the Me Too movement and then all through it. And yeah, it was really good. It wasn't like the greatest thing that I've ever read. Reading about mass sexual assault and guys getting away with it for decades is not a pleasant reading experience, but I definitely liked it a whole lot more than Girl Stop Apologizing. The next category is memoir and autobiography, and the winner was Over the Top by Jonathan Van Ness, and the highest rated was Know My Name by Chanel Miller. Now, Jonathan Van Ness is on Queer Eye, and he's adorable, and I love him, and all of that stuff. This is a sweet, moving autobiography, but Know My Name is about the woman raped by Brock Turner from her perspective. She's a writer, and it talks about like her sexual assault, and then through like her life the following years, the trial, and how the US court system took her, a victim of sexual assault, and just constantly made it seem like it was her fault that she was sexually assaulted, because she was sexually assaulted by a rich white boy. And he ended up getting off. Like, he was 100% found guilty. He was caught in the act of sexually assaulting her, and he still only served 6 months in prison. And that's it. Like, he's a convicted sexual offender who was caught in the act of raping a girl. She lost a good 4 years of her life to the trauma of being sexually assaulted, and he got 6 months. And then people still constantly like victim blame and slut shame and everything like that. And this is probably the second saddest book that I read this year. It was incredibly moving, and I think everybody should read it if you can stomach reading about sexual assault, because it really just shows like how shitty our criminal justice system is when you're not wealthy and white. Next category is history and biography. So the winner was The Five by Haley Rubenhold, or Hallie, I think it's Haley. If I'm saying it wrong, then that's my fault. The highest rated was The Only Plane in the Sky by Garrett Graff. Now, The Five is the true story, or the history of the 5 women killed by Jack the Ripper, the 5 women known to have been killed by Jack the Ripper. It doesn't talk anything at all about the Ripper himself. It's not about the murders or anything at all like that. It is literally the history of their lives. And the important takeaway from this book is that none of these women were prostitutes. Or I'm sorry, one of the 5 women are prostitutes when everybody in the world is just told, hey, they're prostitutes. No, they were homeless. They're not selling themselves for sex. They were just homeless. Because, you know, in Victorian England, a lot of people were really fucking poor and homeless. So that is the biggest takeaway from it. And I thought I learned a lot from that, because I, even before reading this, had no idea that they weren't like legitimately prostitutes, which there's nothing wrong with sex work, but assuming that these women got murdered because of sex work when it wasn't even a little bit true is just fucking absurd. Anyway, reading about poor women in Victorian England is not entertaining. It's not interesting. It's extremely boring, but taking away that small little bit is really what I would want you all to take away from. If you want to learn more than that, go ahead and read it, but I don't think that it's like a necessary to read. The Only Plane in the Sky, on the other hand, this is the saddest book that I've read all year. This is the true first-hand accounts of thousands of people who experienced the September 11th, 2001 terrorist attacks in the United States. And it covers like just the day before, the day of, and the day after, and then there's like little snippets about like years down the road and recovery process. But it's people who actually directly experienced these in one way or another. And I started crying at page 3 and didn't stop crying for like 3 days. And I was super dehydrated. And it's the most sad, moving thing that I have ever read in my life, so that one obviously wins this category for me. I don't know that I recommend people read it, but it was moving. So if you want to cry, read that. Next category is Science and Technology, which is another nonfiction category. The winner was Will My Cat Eat My Eyeballs by Caitlin Dowdy, and the highest rated was Invisible Women by Catherine Corrado Perez. Now, Will My Cat Eat My Eyeballs, basically the author is a mortician, and she makes YouTube videos as like a side job about, you know, dead people. And this book is basically questions that children have asked her over, you know, her career, about death. Like, will my cat eat my eyeballs when I die? Or what happens if an astronaut dies in space? Or, you know, things like that. So this is targeted towards children. It was interesting, but not great. Invisible Women was data bias. So it was all like data that governments or people have collected and kind of highlighting why a lot of that data is biased towards men instead of women. Now, I preferred Invisible Women, and I really enjoyed this book because it was set up as factual and not just like women have it so hard, men have nothing bad at all in their lives, like kill all men, that kind of thing. Like, I don't want to read any shit like that, and that wasn't what this is. And even though I enjoyed this, I want to point out, like, take it with a grain of salt of how good this book is, because apparently the author of this book has come out with some public statements that are either racist. Apparently she doesn't include women of color in her data bias or for her fight for women's rights. And she's transphobic. She has made some very transphobic statements. So while I enjoyed this book, and if you're interested in reading it, I recommend checking it out from your library and not putting any money in that author's pocket. I did borrow it from the library, so. Next up was graphic novels and comics. The winner was Pumpkinheads by Rainbow Rowell, and the highest rated was Heartstopper Volume 2 by Alice Oseman. Both of these were like cute. And I learned this year that I can think something's cute and it gets a 3-star, and I don't really care. I thought I didn't like graphic novels, but it turns out that I only like dark, depressing graphic novels and I don't like cute things, which, you know, is kind of my aesthetic anyway. So I don't have a winner from this category because they were very equal. Sorry if the angle's a bit different. My memory card got full, so I have to change it. Anyway, as I was saying, if you like cute little slice of life or a day in the life of an LGBTQ couple, then you'll probably like both of these. They were just kind of okay for me. Next, we have 3 categories left. Debut novel was next. So the winner was Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston, and then the highest rated was A Woman Is No Man by Etaf Rum. I've already talked about both of these, and obviously A Woman Is No Man is going to be my choice in this category. Next up is young adult fiction, and the winner was 5 Feet Apart by Rachel Lippincott, and the highest rated was Fountains of Silence by Ruta Sepetys. Now, 5 Feet Apart is about 2 sick kids. I don't remember what disease they have, but it has something to do with their lungs filling up with stuff. And they're hospitalized sick kids, but it's not one of them where the sick kids die. The way that this book is told is, it's kind of a love story, like a unattainable type of love story, and the chapters are told like the guy gets a chapter and then the girl gets a chapter, and it's the exact same thing from both of their perspectives, and then it's also short on top of that. So when they made this into a movie, you can fit everything into the book into a movie, just because of how short it is, and then like everything's repeated in the book. So if you're interested in this, just watch the movie. It's literally the exact same story. The Fountains of Silence is a historical fiction about Spain in, I was gonna say the Spanish Civil War, but I don't think it's the Spanish Civil War. But it's the story of Spain under a dictatorship. And this is one of those books where the whole story is boring, and I wanted to DNF it, and it was worth not DNFing because the ending was so good, but it was way too long and way too boring to get to the end. But this is why I have like problems DNFing books, because most of the time when I want to DNF a book, probably like 9 out of 10 times that I want to DNF a book, the ending is not worth it and I should have DNF'd it. But this one freaking time where I wanted to DNF a book, the ending was actually worth getting to. So if you're struggling through this, the ending is worth it. I guess for this category I would consider The Fountains of Silence the winner because I like the ending, but I didn't really like either book. So this easily could have been no winner whatsoever. And the final category is young adult fiction. The winner was The Wicked King by Holly Black, and the highest rated was The Toll by Neil Shusterman. Both of these books were book 3 in their respective series, and it just so happened that I had already read the first 2 books in both of the series, so I didn't have to pick something else. The Wicked King was fucking awful. The pacing was horrible. I hated it. I hated that series so much. The Toll was fantastic. Wicked King is fairies, like humans in fairyland. That's it. The Toll, or it's the Arc of the Scythe series. The other one's called the Cruel Prince series, I think. I don't know. Arc of the Scythe series is science fiction futuristic where no one dies of anything anymore, and the only way somebody could die is if they are killed by a scythe, who kind of like represents a Grim Reaper, and the scythe's job are like humans who are recruited to like cull the population, and everything is run by a supercomputer. I really liked that series. It was fun. I mean, it was young adult, so it wasn't like the most moving thing I've ever read, but it was new and it was interesting and it was really good. So I recommend that. Stay the fuck away from Cool Prince because it was so bad. And that's everything. That's all of those books that I read this year. Whew. So the plan for next year is I think I'm going to read all the winners again, and I think I'm going to expand my categories a little bit more. Maybe, maybe not. We're going to see who the winners are. And then instead of reading the highest rated, I am going to read what sounds interesting to me. And then see if the popularity contest knows my taste better, or if I know my taste better. And I'm thinking I'm gonna like knock out the category and not read it if literally nothing sounds interesting to me. Tell me what you think about that idea down below, or if you have any other ideas how I could possibly get through like the Goodreads Choice Awards for 2020. Yeah, leave it in the comment. Tell me what you think. Do you agree, disagree, like, hate some of the books that I read? Do any of them sound interesting to you now that I've talked about them? Let me know all of that in the comments, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye.